The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council stretched wider than most moons and rose higher than any atmosphere-bound species could imagine. Every wall shimmered with flowing starlight, a design intended to remind all present of the vastness. They served. Delegates from 100 civilizations took their places in floating seats, arranged in spiral layers around a central platform. Some glowed, others flickered. A few shimmered in and out of the visible spectrum entirely. All waited for the same thing, the new species, and then the humans arrived. Their entry was quiet. No fanfare, no music. Just 3 representatives in simple, formal uniforms, stepping onto the platform with steady, composed strides. The translator systems flickered as the leader introduced himself. I am Ambassador Elias Rayner. Earth extends greetings, friendship, and commitment to the ideals of the Council. A ripple of soundless amusement passed through the upper tiers. The Varnan delegate, a towering crystalline being with 8 vibrating limbs, leaned toward her. Neighbor N spoke through a musical chime only certain frequencies could detect. They brought fabric uniforms. I suppose armor was too expensive. Another from the Mirren Collective replied with a low-pitched whistle. Do they even have ships that leave their system without breaking down? This was not hostility. Not quite. It was the kind of condescension reserved for a species that had arrived late to the stars and still carried the scent of atmosphere and oceans on them. Humans were behind in nearly every known technological metric. Their ships were barely FTL capable. Their military history was vague, fragmented, and too many, unimpressive. But they were patient. And they listened. Ambassador Rayner did not react to the quiet mockery. He nodded when thanked. He waited his turn to speak. When the topic turned to border security in the outer reach, Earth simply offered to observe and learn. The meeting moved. On weeks passed. Then months. Earth took its seat at every session. They asked questions, studied protocols, sent observers to monitor trade routes and peacekeeping efforts. They volunteered for low-level diplomatic missions that others dismissed as tedious. When a dispute broke out between the Jalari mining guilds and the merchant clans of Kor, the humans sent a single envoy who resolved the issue in 3 days with a simple negotiation strategy most had overlooked. When a rogue AI escaped containment near the Othran spires, Earth quietly provided a decryption algorithm that allowed the containment systems to reset without harm. Still, many in the Council remained unimpressed. The Council of Worlds had seen plenty of new species come and go. Many burned brightly, flared with ambition, then faded once they realized the scale of galactic order. Some tried to conquer, others collapsed inward. A few simply lost interest. Humanity, they believed, would be no different, but behind the quiet smiles and polite gestures, something else stirred. Humanity had learned long ago not to reveal its full strength too quickly. Their history was not recorded in shining declarations and grand parades. It was forged in harsh winters, endless wars, and survival under pressure no other species had endured. They did not boast. They built on a forgotten moon near their home. System, a shipyard produced sleek vessels with no public record. Deep in orbit around Neptune, a dark station collected data on every Council ship passing through the Sol Relay, and in bunkers far beneath Earth's surface. Military commanders reviewed alien tactics and weaknesses with the cold focus of a species that had survived extinction-level threats more than once. When the Varnan ambassador made another passing joke, this time about Earth's decorative Fleet Ambassador Rayner only smiled and replied, "We find beauty in function." The chamber chuckled politely. No one noticed that behind his words, Earth had just authorized the launch of its first observation vessel beyond Council-monitored space. The humans were not preparing to impress. They were preparing to be underestimated. The requests came during a routine Council session. The incident itself was minor, barely enough to disrupt the meeting's schedule. A trade dispute had escalated into an armed standoff near the border of the Outer Reach. The Volari Syndicate had seized control of a supply station jointly operated by 3 smaller member worlds. Tensions were rising. Shots had already been fired. The Council needed to make a show of unity. Standard protocol called for a symbolic peacekeeping force. A few cruisers from various member states, enough to deter aggression, but not provoke further. Conflict. Each world was asked to contribute 1 ship. Earth, as the newest member, was included in the request. No one expected much. In fact, most delegates assumed Earth would politely decline. A ship from Earth, perhaps a retrofitted freighter, or a survey vessel with a few small weapons. It might even break down en route. No. One paid much attention as assignments were finalized, until Earth replied. "We will dispatch the TSS Valiant," came the transmission. 3 cycles. A few delegates raised eyebrows. The name sounded formal, even confident. But there was no public registry of such a ship. No council logs, no specs. Just a call sign and a launch notification. Still, no one took it seriously. By the time the fleet began to assemble near the Volari border, the human ship had already arrived. It held position a few thousand kilometers away from the others, silent and motionless. Most crews assumed it was still booting up or running diagnostics. Visually, it was sleek and dark, a sharp contrast to the ornate designs favored by older species. It bore no external weapon pods, no visible shield generators. Just smooth armor, plating, and a single glowing ring at its stern that pulsed like a quiet heartbeat. The Theron, Cruza Dawnspire, hailed the vessel. "This is Captain Raltish, of the Theron Union. We acknowledge your presence, Earthship. Please confirm your capabilities and designate a commander." The response came instantly, crisp and calm. "This is Captain Mira Holt of the TSS Valiant, combat ready, standing by." A moment of awkward silence followed. The Theron captain hesitated, then continued. "You are advised to remain in the rear. Formation, observation, and support only." "Understood," came the reply. Then the standoff began. The Volari fleet moved into position, weapons charged but not yet fired. Their commander issued a challenge to the Council fleet, one final bluff, perhaps, or a show of strength. The Allied ships prepared to respond with a non-lethal volley meant to push the Volari back. A few shield flares. A calculated stalemate. But then, everything changed. Without warning, the Volari fleet began to scatter. 3 of their cruisers lost power simultaneously. A fourth turned to flee, but exploded mid-maneuver without being touched. Council sensors scrambled to identify the cause. No weapons had been fired. No energy spikes. No signal interference. And yet, 5 Volari ships were now adrift, damaged, or gone. The rest of the Volari forces fled in panic. The Council ships stood frozen. Then, a quiet voice came through the channel. "TSS Valiant to Fleet Command. Hostile activity neutralized. Standing down, no boasting, no gloating, just a clear report." The Theron captain, still reeling, managed to respond. "Captain Holt, what exactly did you do?" "Precision interdiction," she replied. "Non-lethal. Where possible." Council analysts spent days reviewing the encounter. There were no projectiles, no lasers, no missiles. Just brief disruptions in local gravity fields, small energy pulses, and brief moments of signal distortion, all precisely. Timed to someone aboard the Valiant had predicted every Volari move and acted before they made it. Not with force. With control, the Council couldn't decide whether to be impressed or unnerved. Earth, once dismissed as harmless, had just ended a standoff with a single ship without firing a shot in the traditional sense. Ambassador Rayner said nothing in the next session. He didn't need to. For the first time, the Council stopped laughing. They started paying attention. The TSS Valiant's display at the Outer Reach had done more than resolve a standoff, had unsettled the Galactic Council in a way no one admitted openly. In official briefings, the incident was referred to as an efficient tactical response. But behind closed doors, questions were multiplying. How had a human ship previously unrecorded, with no known combat history, managed to disable multiple hostile vessels without visible weapons fire? And more importantly, what else were the humans hiding? In the weeks that followed, several member civilizations began digging. Quietly, carefully, the Ilari Corps sent archivists into Earth's shared diplomatic data packets. The Mirren Collective activated long-dormant observer probes near the Sol system. Even the Theran Union, Earth's supposed supporters, deployed a covert AI node to scan for classified human ship designs. What they found didn't match the image humanity had presented. Earth's public military records listed only 10 active patrol vessels, most of them decades old. But older human transmissions, ones not meant for external review, told a different story. Centuries earlier, long before humanity joined the stars, they had endured what the Council would classify as multiple Category 5 planetary conflicts, full-scale wars, collapses, global restructuring. There were mentions of orbital bombardments, of kinetic weapons so powerful they could alter climate, of artificial intelligence systems so dangerous they were sealed beneath polar ice caps, rather than destroyed. One species reviewing the files questioned whether humans had, at one point, waged war against themselves using weapons that would be banned in any Council system. But the most troubling discovery wasn't a weapon. It was a pattern. Every conflict in human history followed the same arc: survival, adaptation, escalation, and innovation. When attacked, humanity didn't just defend, they changed, they learned. And they responded in ways their enemies never predicted. It wasn't that humanity was the most advanced species in the galaxy. They were simply the most prepared to evolve under pressure. Council analysts reviewed archived footage from Earth's history, grainy videos of ground troops operating in ruined cities, fighter jets executing impossible maneuvers, submarines launching warheads from beneath frozen oceans. These weren't simulations. This was history. Real, lived, and survived. The Valiant's capabilities now seemed less surprising. What if it wasn't an anomaly? What if it was just the first? Back on Earth, the reaction to the Council's curiosity was muted. Inside a secure command complex hidden beneath Antarctica's ice shelf, Admiral Kira Donovan reviewed the same intelligence reports that were causing unease across the stars. "They're watching now," she said, arms crossed as she faced a holographic projection of the Council chamber. "Took them long enough." Her chief analyst, Commander Patel, gave a short nod. "Intercepts suggest at least 5 major powers are probing our archives. They're only scratching the surface." "Let them," the Admiral replied. "Let them know just enough." She walked toward a display showing shipyard activity near War Titan. Several new vessels were under construction, none listed on the Council registry. Project Silence is ahead of schedule. Valiant's success gave us cover. And the prototype. Fleet, 6 operational. 3 in stealth orbit. The rest are waiting for approval. There was a long pause before she continued. "Don't reveal anything more than necessary. Not yet. The Council isn't ready to know what we've been building, what we've learned from our past." Patel glanced at her. "You think they'll come for us?" "I think some already want to," she said quietly. "And when they do, they'll expect the version of us they saw in the Council chambers." She turned back to the screen. "But they won't be ready for the one we never showed." Across the galaxy, whispers turned into warnings. Speculations turned into simulations. How strong was Earth's fleet, really? Had humanity simply hidden its true strength? How had they only just begun to reveal it? One fact now echoed through every military council, every strategic bureau, every private command network. Humanity wasn't weak. They were waiting. The Zelari Dominion had never cared much for the Galactic Council to them. It was a slow-moving bureaucracy built by species too afraid to act without committee approval. The Zelari were different, fierce, proud, and rooted in a warrior tradition that valued strength over diplomacy. Their empire stretched across dozens of systems, taken by force and held through fear. So when whispers about humanity's hidden power began spreading through council space, the Dominion's leadership wasn't concerned. They were curious. Then they were annoyed. Then they issued a challenge. It came in the form of a broadcast, open, direct, and deliberately provocative. To the humans of Earth, it began. Your recent actions have drawn attention. You speak softly while hiding behind stronger voices. The Dominion wishes to know, what strength do you truly possess? The message ended with a demand. Surrender control of Outpost Alara, a small human colony near the contested border of Zelari space. It was not a strategic location, not even resource, but it was human and symbolic. The Council urged restraint, mediation, sanctions. If necessary, Doth gave no public reply, but within 24 hours the Zelari fleet arrived at Outpost. Ilara, what they found was, unexpected, no orbital defenses, no battle-ready fleet, just a single human corvette in low orbit, broadcasting a continuous message on an open channel. This is sovereign human territory. Depart immediately. The Zelari commander, Admiral Trazek, sneered at the transmission. No shields, no weapons, online. One outdated ship. He didn't even bother to power up his full arsenal. This will be over in minutes, he ordered. A warning shot across the corvette's bow, standard intimidation tactic. The moment the shot fired, everything changed. 3 Zelari cruisers lost power simultaneously. 2 others spun out of formation, their navigation systems hijacked by an unknown signal. The lead dreadnought, the Dominance, fired a second time, only for its main cannon to overload and shut down. No counterfire came from the human ship. Instead, it remained perfectly still, as if watching a new message played over every Zelari. Frequency, crisp and calm. You are violating protected space. This is your final notice. Trazek, now alarmed, ordered full weapons deployment and shield activation. Nothing responded. His entire fleet had been rendered inert. One by one, systems failed. Power drained. Communications fractured in the command deck of the corvette designation. TSS Halcyon Commander Reka Monroe stood in silence, hands behind her back. Any casualties? Her tactical officer asked. None reported, she replied. Zelari systems are neutralized. All weapons locked. Life support remains stable. They can go home, or they can wait until we tow them. What if they try to retaliate? She tilted her head. They won't. And they did single quotes. Within hours, the once proud Zelari fleet limped back to its own territory, silent, embarrassed, and defeated without a single casualty. Across the council, reaction was immediate. For some Earths, restraint was a show of maturity. For others, it was proof of something far more dangerous. Control, humanity. Hadn't just defended a colony. They had dismantled a fleet without launching a single visible attack. It was no longer possible to deny the truth. Humanity's strength wasn't theoretical. It was real, and it was quiet at the next council session. Ambassador Rayner arrived as usual, briefcase in hand, expression calm. The room, however, was different. Delegates who once spoke over him now watched in silence. The Zelari ambassador was absent. Without raising his voice, Raynor addressed the room. Earth does not seek conflict, but we will not yield what is ours. Let this be the only demonstration necessary. He didn't need to say more, because by now, every delegate had seen the transmission. Every military advisor had analyzed the failure. Every strategist had asked the same question: if Earth could do this with one ship, ... what would happen if they brought more? The Council's grand chamber had never been so quiet. Not when the Haskari rift opened, not when the Singularity Accord collapsed, but now, after the Zelari withdrawal. Silence hung over every session like a storm waiting to break. Humanity had not issued threats. They had not demanded territory or tribute. They had simply drawn a line and made it clear that no one would cross it without consequences. For the first time, the other member species stopped looking at Earth as a curiosity. Now, they looked at it as a question. What else was hidden behind that calm exterior? In a secure orbital facility above Earth, Admiral Kira Donovan stood before a transparent wall. Watching a fleet of ships drift in low-power stealth formation, each vessel bore no official designation. Their hulls shimmered faintly with adaptive camouflage, and their engines remained in standby nearly invisible to all but the most sensitive scanners. These were not prototypes. They were finished. Fleet Commander Hale reports the third wave is ready, said Commander Patel, stepping beside her. 12 ships, minimal crew, full combat AI on board, and the Valkyrie systems, integrated and tested. Response times are above expectations. Donovan nodded once. For decades, Earth had let the galaxy believe it was weak. It had allowed outdated blueprints to be leaked, staged slow ship launches for public viewings, and let Council observers monitor training exercises designed to look inefficient. Meanwhile, in the shadows, Earth's True Defense Initiative had grown into something few species would have dared imagine. It began with Project Silence, a fleet initiative developed in the aftermath of humanity's final global war. War that had nearly ended their civilization. Then came Operation Shard, focused on understanding alien technology not to mimic it, but to counter it. And finally, the Valkyrie. Protocols Combat A is designed not only to respond to threats, but to outthink enemy fleets in real time. Earth never intended to compete with the galaxy. They intended to prepare for what the galaxy might one day become. We were never trying to dominate, Donovan said softly. We were just trying to survive long enough to be left alone. But we're not alone anymore, Patel replied. Donovan exhaled and looked out at the stars. No. Now they're looking directly at us. Far from Earth, in a Council intelligence facility orbiting the moon of Velen Prime, a quiet alarm triggered an analyst, Nari Heck, of the Ilari Corps, studied the data in stunned silence. They had been monitoring low-frequency signal leaks from Sol's outer orbital regions harmless, according to most. But now, something had changed. The pattern wasn't just intelligent, it was layered, and beneath the signal a faint data fingerprint. Encrypted but ancient, there was a warning label encoded in human language and binary both. System active, eyes only. Clearance Alpha 0. The signal wasn't a transmission, it was a status report. Earth wasn't just moving ships, it was waking up old systems. Systems buried in forgotten orbits. Dormant satellites, dark matter collectors, high-orbit rail platforms. In every simulation Narika ran, the outcome was the same. If Earth ever decided to engage in open conflict, they wouldn't need months of preparation. They were already ready. Across the Council, intelligence branches reached the same conclusion, almost simultaneously. Humanity's silence had never been submission. It had been strategy at the next Council. Meeting Ambassador Raynor sat quietly, listening as delegates debated protocol reforms and fleet redistribution. Some species called for new rules, limiting stealth systems. Others urged Earth to submit its ship schematics for review. Raynor didn't argue. He simply passed a datapad across the table to the Council's senior fleet director. On it was a single sentence: "The best deterrent is one you never have to use." The director read it, then met Raynor's eyes. No words were exchanged. None were needed, because now the Council understood something. It ignored for too long. Earth didn't need approval, and they certainly didn't need permission. The Council all had never been so divided. Species that had once spoken in perfect diplomatic rhythm now found themselves arguing behind closed doors, whispering across alliances, and questioning every protocol they had once believed sacred. Not because Earth had demanded anything, but because it hadn't. No ultimatums. No calls for reform. No threats of retribution. Only silence and capability. It was that silence that frightened them in the private chambers of the Theron Union. Fleet Chancellor Rel Tesh reviewed a classified briefing with growing discomfort. The document detailed intercepted footage of an unknown object entering warp near the edge of Council space. It bore human signal markers, but none that matched existing vessel designs. The object never reappeared on the exit end of the wormhole. It had vanished, except it hadn't. 3 days later, an unauthorized scan of a Varnan deep space military installation revealed something hovering in low orbit. A faint distortion, almost invisible to traditional sensors. The base's defense grid had quietly gone offline for 7 minutes. No damage, no alarms, just silence. When Varnan investigators arrived, they found a message etched into a surface panel in a language only their military used alongside an ancient Earth proverb. Translated perfectly: "Speak softly and carry a big stick." The message was unsigned. It didn't need to be. Back on Earth, Ambassador Elias Raynor sat in a quiet chamber far below the Sol Embassy, watching footage from recent Council broadcasts. Political analysts across dozens of species were now debating a new term: post-silence deterrence, a theory based on humanity's recent behavior. According to the analysts, Earth had entered a phase where their silence was the message. Every quiet move, every unanswered question, every non-retaliatory response was calculated, controlled, and intentional. Ambassador Raynor looked up as a soft chime echoed from the wall. A secure line from Admiral Kira Donovan. "Any change in posture?" she asked, her voice coming through clear. "Not yet," he replied. "They're still too divided to act. And if they unify..." Raynor paused. "Then we make it clear that we still prefer peace. But that we're not afraid of the alternative." Donovan didn't answer right away. "Then, the Valkyrie fleet is fully operational. We've deployed 3 units beyond Council range. Monitoring only." Raynor gave a small nod. "Let's hope they only have to watch." Back at the Council, tensions came to a head. Delegates from several member species stood before the full chamber and issued a formal request that Earth submit its military capabilities for review by the Galactic Defense Oversight Committee. The justification was carefully worded to ensure continued trust and transparency among all member worlds. It was a vote of caution disguised as cooperation. Raynor stood to speak. Calm, as always. "Earth has always honored the principles of the Council. We have not attacked. We have not expanded beyond our borders. We have not taken what is not ours." T paused, letting his gaze move slowly across the chamber. "And yet, we're asked to open our gates and show our teeth. Not because we have misbehaved, but because we didn't bark loud enough when provoked." A few delegates looked away. Others leaned in. Raynor continued. "Earth does not build for conquest. We build so that we don't have to fight again. But if peace depends on one species surrendering its right to defend itself, then perhaps..." The Council has forgotten what unity truly means. He set down a datapad on the central podium. I decline the review request. The chamber went silent, not in outrage, but in recognition. Some council members saw Earth's decision as arrogance, but others more quietly saw it as strength, because Earth had said no without fear, and no ships moved. No fleets surged. No weapons warmed, because deep down, the Council had already begun to understand something that no file or footage could fully explain. Earth had learned the price of survival, and they had paid it. Alone now, they would not ask permission to stand. Ready? Not ever again. The Zalari Dominion had been quiet for too long. After their humiliating retreat from Outpost Alara, the Dominion had pulled its fleets inward, suspended external communications, and refused council arbitration. Many believed they were regrouping. Others thought their pride had been shattered, but Earth knew better. Admiral Kira Donovan watched the incoming reports from deep space relays. Movement, mobilization, massive energy signatures forming in the black space between stars. The Zelari weren't sulking. They were preparing for war. And this time, it wouldn't be a test or a challenge. It would be an attempt to break humanity completely. Final projections, Donovan asked, her voice calm but firm. Commander Patel turned from the halotable Zalari fleet, estimated at just under 400 warships, 50 dreadnought class. Formation patterns suggest coordinated strikes on at least 3 outer colonies. They're not coming to intimidate us. They're coming to erase us. Deployment window, 4 days, maybe 3. She nodded. Begins silent activation of Valkyrie groups 1 through 4. No signal trails. I want them watching, not engaging, less fired upon. And the Council. We wait. The Council, meanwhile, remained paralyzed. Rumors of Zalari fleet movement had begun circulating. But without direct confirmation, most member species hesitated to act. Some still saw it as posturing. Others, still wary of Earth's growing influence, feared being drawn into a conflict they couldn't control in a closed-door session. Several delegates asked if Earth might be provoking the Dominion sensationally, or otherwise. Ambassador Rayner listened patiently. Then he stood. Humanity has been quiet, he said. We have built, listened, and cooperated. But if you believe we will allow ourselves to be erased to maintain diplomatic appearances, then you've misunderstood everything about us. He paused, then added, we are not asking for war. But we will not wait for it to arrive on our doorstep. He left the chamber without further comment. By the time his transport left orbit, a Zelari task force had already crossed the Council border. The first colony struck was Crescent Risa Research, and mining settlement built into the rings of a gas giant. The Zalari came fast, surrounding the orbital habitat and broadcasting demands for unconditional surrender. No human warships were visible, no defenses activated. The Zalari prepared for bombardment. Then, ... Everything stopped. Across every ship in the Zalari fleet, weapons failed to initialize. Navigation systems spun wildly off course. Reactor cores dropped to idle. Entire warships drifted. Powerless, then came the sound. Not a signal. Not a threat. Just a soft tone. Harmonic. Perfectly timed. And in that moment, dozens of Valkyrie-class stealth ships decloaked. Each one locked precisely onto the command nodes of the Zelari fleet, but did not fire. Instead, a message appeared on every Zelari screen. This is your opportunity to turn back. You will not receive another. The Zelari fleet disengaged. Not because they were ordered to, because they couldn't win. Back on Earth, Admiral Donovan stood before a global command screen, watching real-time feeds from outer orbit. They never fired, Patel said quietly. They didn't have to, she replied. Donovan turned to a secure channel. Send a message to the council. Let them know the threat has passed. Patel hesitated. And if they ask how we did it? Donovan smiled faintly. Tell them it was a matter of timing. The Zelari retreat sparked shockwaves. The council finally received hard data. Sensor logs. Fleet dispersal patterns. Evidence of a full-scale assaults topped cold, and Earth hadn't asked for permission. They had acted quietly, precisely. Without fanfare, the Zelari had prepared for war. Earth had prepared for survival. Only one of them had understood what that truly meant. Across council space, one question now lingered in every military chamber and strategic briefing room. If this was Earth's defensive posture, what would it look like if they ever decided to strike first? The silence that followed the Zelari retreat was heavier than any battle cry. Across the Galactic Council chambers, across the countless worlds that made up the starry mosaic of civilizations, an undeniable truth had settled in. Humanity was no longer a question. It was a force, not because they had conquered or threatened, but because they had shown what survival truly meant. In Earth's Global Command Center, Admiral Kira Donovan watched the data streams from the outer systems, Valkyrie fleets patrolling quietly but visibly near former conflict zones. The human colonies reinforcing defenses. And the new diplomatic messages sent across council channels. Ambassador Elias Rayner joined her. They're listening, Donovan said, eyes never leaving the screens. Rayner nodded. Not just listening. They're watching. Did you expect anything else? Some, he admitted, but not this. For decades, Earth had hidden behind diplomacy and silence. Now it stood firmly in the open, not for conquest, not for glory, but as a guardian of its own future. The Galactic Council convened once more, this time with all major factions present. The debate was no longer about Earth's capabilities, it was about how to coexist with a species that refused to bow, that refused to yield. And that had mastered the art of silent strength. Council President Lyra Vallon addressed the assembly. Humanity has not sought to dominate our galaxy. Her voice echoed through the chamber. They have not expanded their territory beyond what was granted. Yet their presence alone has altered the balance of power. A representative from the Ilari Corps rose next. We must reconsider our approach. Humanity's military doctrine, their technology, and their will to survive are unlike anything we have encountered. Others nodded. The weight of history pressed upon them. Vallon continued, we cannot afford to dismiss them as an anomaly. They have redefined what it means to be a power in our galaxy. Back on Earth, Admiral Donovan prepared a message to be broadcast across council space. She stood before a bank of holoscreens, her voice steady and clear. To all who listen, she began. Humanity does not wish for conflict. We seek peace, cooperation, and understanding. But we will not compromise our right to defend our homes, our families, and our future. Her gaze swept the room, then the camera. We have learned that true strength lies not in conquest, but in the readiness to protect what matters most. We hope this message finds you in wisdom and peace. The broadcast was transmitted on every available frequency, reaching even the furthest corners of council space in the following weeks. Responses trickled in. Some species expressed admiration, others cautious respect. Few still carried old fears. But one message stood out, a direct communication from the Zelri Dominion. Their new commander, Admiral Trazik, now humbled but resolute, sent a simple declaration. We have underestimated you, humanity. We seek dialogue, not destruction. It was the first of many. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. The laugh that once greeted humanity's starfarers was replaced by whispers of quispers. Skepticism gave way to cautious alliances. The dismissive glances turned into focused attention, because humanity had revealed its true military power not through bluster or domination, but through unwavering resilience, silent readiness, and a resolve forged in the fires of survival. When humanity stood tall, the galaxy stopped. Laughing,